Hey beautiful friends, thank you for joining me. I honour those that are plugging in regularly, and I'm so appreciative because sometimes I sit back and I think, who am I to talk? But here we are. I feel like I have had a major activation within the back of my throat, and there are some things that just need to float out. And today's topic is assumption. It's one that I ponder a lot over the years, and to assume what somebody else is thinking actually links into judgment. Good morning, Your Life Movement. It's nice to have you here. It's not even morning, it's 333. What am I saying? 333. Hello. Here we go. And I'm playing the 963 hertz frequencies. So this is for your loving activation or your Christ consciousness or your higher expanded way of seeing and knowing things. Because once you get to an expanded state of consciousness, you don't need to read about it. You just know it. It just drops in. So here's what I'd like to talk to you today about: assumption. And that is thinking you know what somebody else is going through, or making it about you in somebody else's response to something that you've said or done, or even somebody ignoring you. A lot ticks on in our head about that circumstance. Say somebody doesn't answer your call, or they don't get back to you on a text message, or you haven't seen a friend in a long time. Our minds can really run ahead, can't they? But I want to show you how that's linked into ego. And the ego defends self so that it doesn't feel hurt. So rejection feels really, really hurtful at times, doesn't it? And not all non-engagement is rejection. Some people are busy, sometimes it's vibrational, sometimes there's some serious circumstances going on. Sometimes it's that you haven't learnt communication skills in order to get to the bottom of the problem. And that's what those people in your life are showing you. That it's not all about your thoughts, protecting ego. It's about you learning to communicate and ask the hard questions. Because in having courage, which comes from the heart space, to ask the hard questions, we give that person permission to speak their truth. And the truth does set you free, and sometimes the truth hurts, doesn't it? So to surrender all assumptions, which is judgment, is necessary for you to dive back into that ego death again and rise up to a higher state of consciousness. Relationships end because people don't talk. They don't talk the tough talks. They're fine to be in a relationship while everything's rosy, or you're in honeymoon phase, or it's all going your way, which is ego state. But as soon as you get to a hiccup, and every relationship does, because those in relationships are usually mirroring the opposite to what the other person needs to learn. And so if I don't have an open mind to learn from you about what's hidden within me, I'm missing this beautiful golden opportunity to grow actually, and to learn how to express self. Everybody in relationships assumes. Everybody. They react. So we react to energies. We react to perceived perceptions of what's going on in the other person's world. And usually we're wrong. We do this because we intuitively want to avoid difficult conversations, because difficult conversations insist that you be compassionate and grow. And that's hard, right? So assuming serves its little purpose in protecting the ego. It's trying to keep you safe, trying to keep your feelings safe, trying to keep you protected. It's still in this fight-flight phase of an uncalmed nervous system. A nervous system that is not peaceful will always assume what somebody else is thinking. Letting go of my own ego bit by bit has allowed me to change the way I parent. Thank you so much for that comment. amazing. Yeah, I've caught myself as a young parent to catching bad behaviors that I learned in my trauma state, and I was mirroring what my parents modeled to me. And it took conscious living, conscious parenting to say, well, I've walked through that, it didn't work so well for me, so I want to intentionally change that for my children. Instead of assuming that I had to be like that because it was my DNA. You can change your DNA by what you meditate on, by what you ingest, by what you give time, what you give your thoughts to. And so if we take every thought captive to love instead of to ego, we can learn to communicate and change and shift the energies that we're holding. You attract what you are holding, right? So in reality, what assumption is doing is creating distance and resentment, and that can be felt energetically. So think about some friendships that you've lost or relationships that have broken down. If you have held assumption within your belly, energetically that person can feel that, and they may drift away, and you've missed the opportunity to have deep, meaningful thoughts. Love wants to get to the bottom of the root issue. Just the same way loving self, you need to go inward and get to the bottom of the root issue. It's the same in relationships. I love you enough to have an uncomfortable conversation so that I can see it from your perspective. We can get to the bottom of this because somewhere in the middle there's some miscommunication. But how do we learn to communicate compassionately? These are some things that I've written down that are common little thought processes when we are running in assumption. It might be, they should know me. They should know me by now. It's just the way I am. So you're defending in your assumption that somebody else knows you well enough to know why you're reacting. It should be the opposite to that, right? Another little thing that I wrote down is, it's obvious. It's just obvious to everybody that I'm just this way. I'm just wired this way. And so they should respect that. But you are not respecting or giving grace for seeing them in the same way. And hence the sparks. So when you get polarity or duality, it has sparks happen, right? With two different types of ways of seeing things. It's the pendulum swinging. You are responding knee-jerk reactions to things that aren't really understood. It's all energetics. The next one I have written down is, they did it because of. You fill the blank. And so we're assuming, or gossiping even, taking it to next level in telling others that shouldn't really need to know what's going on between a relationship. They did this because. So you have already jumped to judgment. And remember, the universal principle is judge not lest you be judged. And so to sit in a place of neutrality in the heart space is the only thing that will protect you karmically, the only thing that will teach you to hold space for others that have a different point of view. And everybody should have a different point of view to do. There's a big helicopter flying over. Can you hear it? Everybody should have a different point of view to you, because we are all co-creating our own realities. And so there are no two realities that are the same. We could walk through the same experience, even in a family environment, and we would see things very differently. And so henceforth, people's healing journeys are very different too, because the perspective is different. One could have an attachment to a dysfunctional parent, for example, and develop codependence with the dysfunctional parent, and the other one could be responding in the flight state and running away and seeing the toxicity for what it is. Perspective is everything, and you will not unpack perspective if you're running an assumption, judgment, or what I call those tethered bonds. Those emotional bondings that you have, those attachments that you have in your trauma state. So the bonds need to be cut. You need to fly back out of the situation and observe and witness without assumption and judgment. Hope that's making sense. Thanks for the love hearts. Okay, so the next one I have written down is they just don't care about my feelings. Do you hear the word my? So you've made it all about you. This is your thoughts protecting your ego. And the ego hates to lose. Instead of making this a we situation, you've made it a you. And if it's only you and you're caught up in emotions that are only about you, you've cut yourself off from the oneness in your assumptions. So I used to, in my Christian days, teach people that I perceive this to be the sin of assumption. Now, sin sounds like a major toxic word, right? But when I talk about sin as a Sinai wave or a lower vibrational wave, I hope that drops in and makes some sense to you, in that I have separated myself with my assumption for what you're thinking. Now, we have assumptions and they're on autopilot all the time. You walk past a homeless person and you want to give to them, but then you assume that maybe they're, fudging, or maybe they're faking it, or, we can have so many assumptions. This is where we need to tap into the oneness or the spirit for truth seeking, instead of what you're thinking when you're cut off, when you're being judgy pants. Hope that's dropping in. So my next thing is, in order to have difficult conversations, one has to regulate the nervous system. So an unhealed nervous system will autopilot, jump to assumptions and protect self over the other. And this isn't compassion. I hope this helps. I love you. Thank you for all your comments. I want to finish this chat today with a really difficult comment that I received on my YouTube this morning. And I'm so gracious to engage. I'm so grateful, to engage difficult conversations. That person was challenged and triggered by me charging a donation for entry to my forgiveness program. And I could see where they're at. I used to think like that too. But I just gave my perspective lovingly in my answer, and I got a beautiful response again. I know that we're triggered by religious programming, where religions have hypnotized, they have used NLP techniques actually to take money and buy up the land, which was never ever how it was meant to be. The Levite priests were never meant to own land, actually. And who owns the most land? It's the crown, it's the church. But as a spiritual worker, I just presented my truth, and it's only my truth, that I have the right to eat and the right to have an exchange. And I will still work even if you just paid 20 cents. But what I've noticed is a pattern. And it's not judgment, it's just witnessing patterns in people. When people invest in themselves, albeit 20 cents, they actually put some effort in. But when you gift something to somebody over and over again, they never value it. So I just wanted to end with that if you are struggling and you need some help, please reach out. I will not turn you away. I put a percentage of my time to do those freebies for those that are really stuck. But if I notice later that you're not implementing and that you're spending big money on other coaches or other trainings or other similar things to what I'm doing, I probably won't keep giving. Does that make sense? I hope that doesn't feel harsh. It's definitely not coming from a heart space of judgment from me. I am attracting those that want a quantum leap out of victim mindset. I do not want to feed the victim. So I'm gunning for my highest capacity of clients. And those are usually ones that are ready to heal the nervous system themselves, go inward, do the hard work. Nobody can do the work for you but self. This is self-help stuff. You don't need a priest, you don't need a guru, you don't need a teacher. I'm just showing you tools that worked for me, and I pray they work for you too. If you take some time out to invest in yourself, slow down and heal that nervous system using somatics, using sound frequencies, using things like cutting energetic cords. We do that by unpacking forgiveness and working into our traumas, and then leaving that shit in the bin and becoming new. You are new today. You're a different person today than the person that walked through those things yesterday. And that's where I'd like to see you quantum leap, and then start operating from higher self and changing the frequency of Earth. You were born for that. Lots of love and chat soon.